Yeah, especially.
Okay.
So actually, would you mind hanging up here and then helping scan? Because then that way so we don't have to send the notepad around. This would be much easier. I didn't think about that. So let's just go ahead. Use your notepad back. Yeah, that's a better way. Forgot about the badge thing. Okay, so yeah, we're going to start in about 2 minutes. So we're going to start in about 2 minutes, but instead of passing the notepad around, which was my original dumb idea because it's not digital, we have a badge scanner, which then I won't have to go through and input the email address. Now the reason we're scanning is because we're going to send you the PowerPoint and an invitation to join the project, but also the video of this presentation that we're going to be posting on YouTube, so you could relive this moment over and over and over again as much as you want. So, but we're gonna start probably in 1 or 2 minutes, and this is gonna be, we got some really exciting stories to tell you about mathematics and how we're going to be changing the face of math for not just at-risk youth, but all youth in CTE and beyond. So we'll give it 1 more minute. So actually, maybe 2 more minutes. Set timer for 2 minutes. So I bet you all are math enthusiasts here. My name is Nye, and this is John Hubenthal, and we're here to tell you a story about this project that is brand new and realistically launched March of this year. Anybody here last year, from last year that listened to us talk about the future of this project? Well, the future is now, so thank you very much. So John? You know, do you want to use the mic or do you want to go read? Can you guys hear it from back without the mic? This is John.
My name is John Hupenthal. I'm the former superintendent of public instruction for the state of Arizona. And the project that we're talking about today has its research roots going all the way back to the early 1980s. And when I became superintendent of public instruction in 2010, we gathered all that research together and we told staff we're going to start up a project codenamed Free Throws, and we want you to take this body of research and refine it even further. We want to know what's the latest cutting edge research on memory and motivation, because we want to create an environment in which students move mathematically faster than they'd ever moved before in history. And that's what we've been able to accomplish, a level of motivation for students that's literally unheard of in the history of mathematics. Now, we had some spectacular successes when I was superintendent. One Saturday, down in the Sunnyside School District, a highly at-risk school district with almost 100% minority student population and extremely poor, we put together a large classroom full of students, and in one Saturday, they did 38,000 math problems correctly. Really an astounding accomplishment. But when we got to the end of the 4 years as I was at superintendent, the project wasn't finished, And I was fortunate, Super Geek here agreed to take over the project and provide the support structure for it.
And funny story, we actually met on a plane ride from ACTE Nashville. Not last year's Nashville, but the Nashville from 5 years ago.
I'm about a third of the way through the flight, and my assistant comes over to me and said, we got to change seats. You got to listen to this guy. He's really sharp, and he is really sharp. So that project then moved to an extremely at-risk school in South Phoenix, the highest crime, highest poverty zip code in Maricopa County. The group of students that I began working with.
And that's when you became a math teacher, right?
Yes, I also took the time to get past the math certification test. That was an educational experience all on its own. You know, I thought, oh, I've been working with numbers my whole life. I'll be able to go in there and ace that. It took me a couple extra tries. But so I moved to this school as a math teacher in the 4th grade, and I went around to each student, extremely at-risk student population, and I asked each one of them, what is 5 plus 4? Not a single one of them could say 9. 2/3 of them could do it on their fingers, and when I looked up their test data, I had a number of students who had scored 0 on what we call the AZ merit test, which is our annual student test. So it was an extremely challenging population. But we put all this environment together for those students, and we were able to accomplish some amazing things.
So here's a video of a kid who could not add 5 plus 4, and he's about to play this math game that we developed in this environment. This is about 40 days into the environment, which is roughly about 2 months of instruction. So kind of psyching myself out.
Okay.
So you see every green square means it's correct. And spoiler alert, you got every single one here correct. And this is a 1-minute timed exercise. I forgot to mention earlier that these exercises that they do is a 10 to 15-minute bell work exercise, so they don't do it all day long, although some of them do.
And if you'll notice very carefully out of the corner of your eye, the student over there is going just as fast as he is, so it's not just one single flash in the pan student. We were able to get a lot of students to this level of fluency.
Yeah, solving for x, diversified algebra, so it's not the same questions coming to them. I mean, we don't want it to be like that. We want it to be challenging, and that's the thing that they love most is the challenge of this.
$60
60 and 0 wrong. Look at
You
that.
can see that he's already done 234 problems. We were able to maintain a typical problem output for these students of over 300 problems in the morning, then I would come back in the afternoon, and it was the nature of the motivation of this environment that we could get another 300 out of them in the afternoon. So they were averaging, these students who have very low math skills were averaging over 600 math problems a day. The student you're seeing right here, he was exceptional, no doubt about it. He peaked out, on his peak days, he would do over 3,000 math problems in a day. When you do that much math, things happen that are really unheard of in the history of mathematics.
So
literally, he was reorganizing every neuron in his body, from his eyeballs to his fingertips. It was quite interesting to see what happens when students hit that level of motivation.
And here he is just 2 months later, kind of want to show you a little bit of growth. So, Matt?
Yes,
Yeah, all right, let's get see you there again there. And I'm going to zoom into this. Harder level. There's actually over 750 levels or standards that they go through. Sure. Okay.
Okay, so the question is, how was this problem set harder than the previous one? And you can see there's 2 sets of numbers on each side instead of the other one and just 2 on one side and 1 on the other side. So it's a level and a layer above, and that's the way this thing works. It's progressively sliced layers as they go to higher levels.
Yeah, we call it, it's an incremental growth. When you do something, oh, there you go.
Okay, so the other thing that we're doing is we're sending words to them. And as the software develops, we're going to eventually, we're going to send all of the problems to them in words. And we think this is a critical evolution in mathematical education because you have to connect these different sides of the brain. And the sooner you get students working in a verbal environment, translating it to a mathematical environment, the faster they're going to be able to translate all of this math ability into the real world.
So in this round, he does 56 correct. And last one I'm going to show you really quick because I know you're probably tired of watching these math videos.
Just before he does, let's talk about the first scientific principle. 9 scientific riddles had to be solved to create this environment. And the first one was to understand down to the core of your being that the human brain is uniquely motivated by a team score. But not any team score. It has to be an instantaneous team score. How are we doing as a class, as a group? Right now, this split second, the brain it has a dramatic effect on the way the brain all of a sudden interacts with the environment, is to have an instantaneous team score in which it profoundly believes it's a member of that team. So that's one.
So
that's how what you're going to see, the performance that Nai's going to put up there,
yeah.
That's how we're able to get that.
But actually, this team score theory actually delves way back to a scientific research that back on the plains of Serengeti. So if you think that our ancestors, when they were like hunters and gatherers, in order to survive, you have to work together and to hunt game. So that's the only way to basically prosper and grow. So it's in our DNA to work together as a group. And in education, we segregate ourselves and we become individuals. And as individuals, we fall. So if you were trying to hunt a woolly mammoth, so to speak, you'd probably get trampled. Well, actually, you wouldn't get trampled. So here he is. 20 days later, so about a month ago.
My name is Ryan. I'm 4th generation and I have 209,000 points and 17,353 questions.
Okay, let's do it.
So can you believe just a few months ago he did not like math at all? So let me go ahead and zoom in here. There we go. Let me pause on this one.
So, one-step word problem, Chromie needs 8 bulbs. Chromie has 4, he needs X more. 8 minus 4 is 4. This is a relatively simple word problem, but it's the speed at which he's doing it that's key. And the fluency that he can grasp, almost essentially reading this all in one look and translate it.
And this was actually, you would think that, oh, he's been working on this for a week or something like that. Well, this was actually a milestone from us. As researchers, we were like going, okay, there's 750 standards that are going through, and we're watching them progress up the ladder. And like, okay, he's going to hit that standard that's going to be mostly word problems. But when he hit it, he didn't slow down much at all. He slowed down. He didn't do 50 or 60 a minute. He went down to 25. But still, this is incredibly fast. So, so we were like astounded because his literacy skills were really poor in his benchmarks. Okay, so I put this up there because we always forget to mention it, but this is a project and we're looking for schools and teachers to partner with in this entire endeavor. We started out with one school in January and now we have about 140 around the country who are trying in different areas, especially in CTE. Now CTE is a new area that we didn't think would be a good fit, but then recently some of my colleagues friends said, oh, I could totally use that. And then we threw it in their classroom. Oh my gosh, the coloring kids in there who had problems with fractions were able to get into it, and then they started developing skills.
We're particularly interested in schools that have an independent measurement metric going on, where you have some type of district assessment system or your local assessment system, so that we can get independent verifications of the academic gains that the students are experiencing. Okay,
so moving on to the presentation. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. Okay, so the other key critical scientific principle is this.
So we talked about the criticality of the team score. We were eventually to find out that there were 9 scientific principles that we had to solve. A team score, and even an instantaneous team score, it's absolutely imperative to create the environment, but it's not nearly enough. Not nearly. So in addition to the team score, you have to have additional accountability, and that additional accountability also has to be instantaneous. I need to know right now, this second, how am I contributing to that team score, which I'm observing simultaneously also. That's the way the human brain is built. It's saying, okay, I have a moral and ethical obligation to help the team out, and I need, in order to manage this and to maximize, I have to know what the team score is, but I also have to know how am I contributing, what's my contribution.
So how we manifest this is this. So in front of the class, we have projected a scoreboard and a leaderboard. Now in education, you immediately get chills up your spine when you hear a leaderboard. But this is the one leaderboard that's unlike any other. In all the implementations we've had, that concern is always brought up, but because of the scientific principles we put behind it, it's superseded all. So what we're seeing here is the beginning of the scoreboard or leaderboard. So you see that little red slot at the very top here. I'm going to zoom in. That's actually the beginning of the game. So this bar moves across the screen, and then next to each name there's also individual tracks. So this one kid kind of got a jump start in the game. And then over here, we're going to come over here to this view here, where you see now it's been fleshed out. So when they hit the halfway mark, it turns yellow, and you can see the individual tracks of each student as well as they're making their way to their personalized goals. And here's a class, kind of wanted to show you, like we got some kids who are on cell phones, but no, they're not on cell phones goofing off. Because of the nature of everyone's contributing, they're all playing the game on their phones, on their tablets, on their devices. This is a GED program that we're working in. And we actually find that kids on phones are about 30% faster than the kids on tactile keyboards as well.
Now, the key aspect, we talk about that individual accountability, but instantaneous individual accountability, it also isn't enough. Another breakthrough was realizing that we had to set a goal for each student that they could achieve. So each student has a completely different goal. And so when we take a look up here at this screen right here,
well, first we have our team goal set by the system. So it's calculated based on a 12-minute time scale. And here it is at completion. So we're 514 points of a goal. And we also have the individual students who have their own badges, basically their own levels that they're working on. So they're working on their own set of standards. And here we go. And
the key thing is that each one of these students has a different goal based on their ability and their level of motivation where it stands right now. So the top student up there is really a monster. The computer says, we are confident that in 12 minutes you can do 500 math problems. So you saw how fast Tarani was putting them out. Tarani can keep that speed going for 12 straight minutes. It's really something to see.
So with that, they're like the LeBron James or the I'll get in a second, or the Michael Jordan of the group. So we have that level of expectation. You had a question there?
Yeah, if you're showing everyone's score, I guess my first initial question is for privacy reasons, if you see who's doing the worst, how do you prevent
That goes to the core of what our breakthrough was, because every student is giving a goal that they can achieve.
So here we're going to move forward to exactly address that question. Down here we have school students who are 200, 400, 500. So those scores are tailored to their output ability.
Now we have those scores listed up here, but the real system does not have those scores listed. So we have them there so that we can tell you, okay, this is somebody who completed their goal, a special ed student who did 70 math problems. So, but they are an equal community standing who, when they accomplish this huge goal as a team, they have equal standing with every other student.
So this is critically important because, with SPED kids, they always feel like they're segregated or taken away when some of the other kids are doing one activity. Now they're all part of the same team. They're playing with the LeBron James and the Michael Jordans, and they're being elevated by the fact that they're playing the game, their bars are moving across, they hit blue, and they are gaining some incredible achievements for that. So that inclusiveness is a part of the whole entire one of the scientific breakthroughs of the fact that we're creating a team culture.
This is not a small thing for special education students. My special education students, those students who scored 0, had no measurable mathematical ability at all, by the end of the year, all of those special ed students were doing over 400 math problems a day, every day. and they were moving on to real skills. So this inclusiveness, being part of this team, being held accountable, not being given any excuses, but given goals that they can accomplish, that they can positively accomplish, are a critical part of the whole equation and can transform. It's almost miraculous to see with many special ed students the impact on them and their lives.
Would you say there's a competitive element still going on there by joining the ranking?
Absolutely, because the kids are competitive with themselves, but it's a healthy competition.
Now, the thing to reference from a technical standpoint, there's a whole field of research called game theory, and our traditional classroom is set up as a zero-sum game. If you get an A, there's one less A for me. But in this environment, it's a non-zero-sum game. And that completely changes the complexity of the relationship between students, from a negative relationship to a very positive relationship. Now, in a non-zero-sum game, I'm hoping you put a lot of points on the board. But guess what? I want to put on more. You know, and so we can be trash talking each other, but it's a friendly trash talking, and we walk out of the room, we're having joy, and we're friends together. We're not feeling bitter because you got the A and I didn't.
Yeah, since you asked that question, I'll jump ahead to one of our most touching moments is like, you know, just addressing the fact that the kid that's the last one to make it. So this kid here is the last one to make the board. Right there. So then his peers start surrounding him. I'm fast forwarding to the end of the round. He's waiting eagerly for the score to post on the scoreboard.
Good job.
There we go.
So this is a huge thing illustrating the non-zero-sum game of it. Every single student gets the blue. And 90% of the time, we were able to get every single student in the laboratory class to hit blue. And it's a big cultural event, and as a cultural signal, it tells every single student, hey, I'm not going to be able to hide, I'm not going to be able to slough off, I'm not going to be able to retreat, I'm going to be held accountable. And I've got to get there, because the students are going to look to me, and they're going to say, hey, you're not in the blue yet. And so they know in advance, when this game starts up, they got to get to work.
So speaking to like one of the other things that's really critical with this entire model is that because of the real-time nature of this board, you see that there's like two red lines on the board. So think of it this way: the system is calculating that 1,500, 1,600, or whatever it is the student should be able to make it to goal within that time frame. So if the student's lagging behind from their peers, what's going on? So the teacher would then act as a coach, as a mentor, a guide, and then basically help them out and perform real-time RTI.
So normally that student is a monster, putting out an enormous amount of volume of work. They're about the halfway point today. All it means is they've gotten up, they've jumped up to a higher level, that they've slowed down a little bit, and it's sort of a signal for help. The teacher goes over there and can give them some hints, some suggestions on how to get through this, to get their speed back up, and they can get going. Another student, it might be just that something happened last night. They got in a fight with their parents, something happened, and all you need to do is go over there and say, hey, Hezekiah, show me what you can do. That's all it would take. And then the students love to be watched. They get kick-started. They say, Hezekiah, you got 5 or 6 more games you got to do here to hit your goal. Can you do it? They always said yes. And so you get them restarted. But as a teacher, you are the shepherd, and you have to watch your flock, and so it means watching the board, and as soon as you see a short bar, you go to that bar, see what's going on. If you attend this, you'll have no problem getting every student to blue. The computer does not give the students goals that they can't achieve.
So that real-time nature really empowers the teacher to be able to do things right then and there, walk over, help the student, instead of waiting for a report and then creating a IEP or something. So the best part of what we've seen, especially going into schools this year, I mean, before we were in one school, we had that group, is that we see this play out so much through all of the classes that we started out with. Yeah. So do you guys want to go home? No! You want to keep playing?
Yeah! I never liked math, but they made it to
Yeah. So I mean, those are elementary school kids, so they're probably comparing it to Fortnite. Anybody here heard of Fortnite? Okay, cool. Yeah, I play it too. And Minecraft and things like that. So because we're using game theory and gamification throughout the whole scientific process, they feel like they're playing a video game. And that feeling of playing a video game is absolutely critical, because when you're doing math, and especially dozens of them and not hundreds, it gets boring fast, right? I wouldn't be able to do it on paper and pencil. It would drive me nuts. But by creating this environment, it just completely changes the whole entire perception of the entire experience.
Now, there's another key thing in this class that the camera just panned across. When you watch that thing slowly and it pans across, what you'll see in this environment, the whole class has gotten to its goal. Every single student has gotten to their goal. But when the camera pans across, you'll see 7 students pounding away. And so they've gotten to their intrinsic motivation. They want to get their abilities stronger. They love what they're doing. They are intrinsically motivated to the core. So what we're talking about here are some very powerful forces. An engine, and this joy, we have these classes going on for months now, and when we come back 4 months later and take a look, there's the same level of joy and enthusiasm as there was on day one. They still are excited about playing the game and want to play it every single day.
So far you've seen nothing but elementary school kids. So how does it relate to you, high school educators, CTE directors, and whatnot? Well, our original premise was this is a great game for third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth graders, and that's what we originally designed it for. But then we accidentally found ourselves in an alternative high school, and we talked to the principal, and the principal said, "Oh, we didn't even know it was alternative high school. We were really dumb." Because we saw a name called Accelerated Learning Center. We're like, oh cool, a charter school. We could go and talk to the principal. The principal said, "Oh, this is great. Let me go talk to my teacher." I'm like, "Great. Well, what grade would he be teaching?" I'm like, "He's like high school." She's like, "High school." We're like, "What?" Maybe we should walk away right now. But the teacher took a look at it. He's like, "Yeah, I'll give it a try for a week." And after a month or so, after a week, from day one, the kids just took to it, because they're playing the same exact game as a third grader. So you think, would a high schooler like to play the same game as a third grader? Well, in this case, we have students who are talking about their experience, and they say some really critical key points about some of our science.
But I actually found out that it kind of tripped up my basic math skills, and I was like missing on kind of some stuff that I should already know. But it's been great, like having that flow in the mornings and kind of just like get my brain flowing. So it's just really nice that we have that tool.
But honestly, like once you get in there and you just get going, you completely forget that you're even doing math. It's honestly just really fun. And the whole class looks forward to it every day. We beg our teacher, we're like, "Oh, let us do it."
I feel like it's a great warm-up that we do every single morning. It helps us get our brains going.
Improve my basic math skills in multiple ways by reassuring me that I can do it and giving me the confidence that I can do it, and just giving the touch-up and the brushes on the basic level stuff that I missed when I wasn't paying attention.
Kind of fun, to be honest, and you can see like your accomplishments. Like I think that's the best part about it, is like you make your own goals and then you try and reach them. It's just for somebody that wants to feel accomplished, and it gives you that really good feeling of satisfaction.
It really keeps your math precision like on point.
I think it's really awesome because we work as a team and we try to like compete with each other, and we have like class parties that we meet our goals, and I think that should be implemented in other schools, because you don't really see students really working as a team when they should be in a classroom. So I think that's really awesome.
How do you say, if you want to get better at what you were lacking, then it's just putting in the work. It's all about it. It's all about just putting in the work. I'm fine with it, because I do lack on this.
So those kids say some very key critical things, like one is the fact that it was tripping them up, and I'll kind of go over that with the illustration come up next. So they're high school kids, and they realize that they're missing some stuff. The other thing that they talk about is helping their brains flow, helping them get going in the morning. So the teacher actually does a great job of talking about how he sees it from his perspective.
All right, the short version. So in the last month, we've been beta testing the KP Compass Math Fluency program and trying it in a high school setting with an entire class. And some of the biggest things we've touched on, other than the group collective goaling, the individual goaling, the slightly competitive nature of it that builds them up. It's just how much more awake, how much more alert, and how much more focused they've become in the classroom right at the start of the day. Their bell work has become fun. The kids aren't even calling it work, they're calling it a game. So they're really enjoying the experience.
And this is a critical part of it, on how he's using it. He's running it for the first 15 minutes of his class, and he's using it as a springboard so that these students are ready to learn. So what he's found out is a lot of these students are resistant, and there's problems. He uses this to get the blood flowing, to get them to get their basic drills so that their math skills are going up, but then he takes it and moves it on to the next level with his own personal instruction.
Yeah, and in other words, we call it, they amp it up. so from that experience, we actually realized that one of the things that became very clear to us is what we call the top of the ladder syndrome. So this high school kid, like a 9th grader, 10th grader, whatever, they're playing the same game like as the 3rd grader. So imagine if you're playing Super Mario or any other games that you guys play. What do you guys, Candy Crush? So everyone starts at level 1. Nobody starts out at level 10. Nobody starts out at level 15. They all start out at level 1. You know, if I were to play a game and they threw me into level 15, I would die every single minute because I'm not prepared for it. So we call this the top of the ladder syndrome because in education, these kids are standing at the top of this ladder and they're trying to learn the concepts that the teacher's trying to teach them. And the teacher has really no choice but to teach it because that's their job, is to teach the standard at a certain pace according to the state guidelines. So they're standing on this ladder and it's all wobbly and rickety because when they're playing this game, they all start at level 1. And at level 1, it's really easy and they start moving their way up. A 3rd grader would climb a ladder like this, slowly but surely as they're going up the ladder. But a 9th grader would be like this, oh, level 1, level 2, level 5, level 10, level 15, and they'll go really fast up the level because they've already developed some skills from previous years. But then what happens is they get to level 17, level 18, and they reach out for level 19, and what happens at 19? It's missing, that rung is missing. So firstly, they're climbing up this ladder, and they're having a lot of great success because they're playing this game. Like any video game, in the very beginning, it's fun, it's easy, you get into it. But then they run into this challenge, this obstacle, or this missing rung. So they identify that problem. And then they go, okay, I never knew that I had that problem. It was a 3rd grade standard that they missed, and it's been giving them problems for their entire life. So they work on it, they repair that, they master it, and they level up to the next level. And when they repair that rung, what happens? The ladder gets stiffer because it's foundational to multiple standards of the ladder. So all of a sudden, this is in class and going, oh, I kind of get that now, because this little piece of information that they missed has been their stumbling block in their entire life. So they keep moving up the ladder and go on. So the problem in education, as I said, is that you're teaching them the standard. It's like the Charlie Brown model. It's like you're talking like this, and then it's like wah, 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 wah. Because they don't have the foundational skills to understand that. So at the top of the ladder, they're balancing this ladder. They're using all of their cognitive resources to stay in balance, counting on their fingers, depending on calculators, leaving nothing else behind to take in the new information, the concepts that you're trying to give them. So by building this, we build their confidence. In fact, like one of the students when we visited that class said, I can never believe I could ever do subtraction in my head until now. So he just fundamentally believed that he never had that skill. It was something that they never, that he just thought he was missing, or dumb from. So, so a lot of it also comes like, what we've seen is like math Ptsd. We see that play out over and over again in elementary schools, and even some high schools too.
And this comes from a body of work that Terrence Scott has done out of Kentucky. And what he found is that a student who is experiencing 3 successes for every 1 failure is at the edge of failure as a student, academic failure. That they have to be up above 4 or more. And if they are below that 3 to 1, we literally see it when we go out and work with students. I call it, it's post-traumatic stress syndrome, and it's absolute. We will see their finger get over the correct answer and just hover like that. And they cannot commit because they have experienced so much failure that they wall themselves off. Some of these students, it's so severe that they're mute. It's their way of protecting themselves. If they refuse to speak, then they cannot be humiliated. And so there's been so little success. What this approach does, and what we've done with this software, is it manages, it's always in the success zone. So it goes down, it reaches all the way down to wherever it has to give these students success, where they're getting green squares, and it starts the success flowing, and then it starts bringing them up. and then they can come up at a surprising pace. In fact, they experience so many thousands of successes in this environment that it becomes much easier to teach them in the regular class. They become mathematically more aggressive. They're willing to accept failure because they've had so much success. It doesn't bother them. They can shrug it off and keep on going.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. By giving them the chance to experience success, we changed their entire attitudes. In fact, when we were working with a group of Native Americans down in Arizona, we went to this the superintendent and asked, okay, we'd like to try this out with a group, and she put us in touch with the principal here, who then introduced us to their third grade team. So they saw the potential in it and they started using it. And day one, when we started, the kids were very quiet. They were all very receded. They were like, not very social. That's one thing that we observed. But then when we introduced the game, they started getting into it. But then we came back a few months later, and this is the principal that said that had some really cool things to say about it.
Hi, I'm Wanda Burton. I'm the principal here at Sackatone Elementary School. When we first started, the students struggled with being very slow at finding things on the keyboard. They didn't partner, collaborate with cheering each other on or work together to help solve problems. Each student was in it for themselves. But as I do my regular duties around the campus, the students have started talking about at recess time what their goals are. So now they're talking about math at recess time. When I walk them out for the buses in the afternoon, I have students running up to say bye to me just so that they can share with me where they're at with their goals and how close they are to meeting their class goals. And they know those numbers. It's not something they're guessing at. They know exactly how many correct problems they have. They know exactly how many more they need. So they're thinking the math and they're thinking their goals and they're celebrating their successes, and they brag on themselves, but they also brag about their classmates. So it's a whole group effort. It's no longer just me, myself, and I. They're taking pride in their own work. They're meeting their goals. They're achieving their goals, and they're celebrating those goals. But they celebrate them outside the classroom with their peers. And so that's my biggest celebration with them, is that they make their own goals and they achieve their goals, but they know where they stand, and they are data driven for themselves on how they're getting better faster.
So here's one of our celebrations when the class hit 500,000 points at about 3 months in, I think. But the thing is, now, when we talk about the math game and the sophistication of how the leveling system is keeping the success zone, I would argue that half of the strength comes from building that team culture, having that group cohesiveness. Because if you were just to do drills, you would fail if you were to do a solo exercise. Like, if you were to shoot hoops by yourself without playing with your friends, how far can you go before you burn out? So like, we're all we're a collective society. We're designed to work together, and oftentimes we separate ourselves and we put ourselves in individual silos, and that's when we all fall down. So that's one thing. The cultural effect is absolutely tantamount for longevity.
It's that balance between individual and group and team that makes this all come together. So it's not an all individual thing. It's not an all team thing. It's a balance thing that just gives an enormous power.
Okay, we already talked about the success zone, but the spiraling success is actually very important, because when we do talk about the leveling system, when they're working on, let's say, level 19 problem types, 50% comes from that level, but then 20% it comes from the next level of slowly being spiraled in, introducing it to them, and 30% come from the levels previously. It's called what we call forward pressure and back pressure. So that keeps them in the success zone. It spirals them up and spirals them down according to how they're doing. But the most important thing about this entire process is building chemical versus permanent memory.
The brain gets unbelievable amounts of information flowing through it. And it says to itself, don't remember any of this stuff. It's not important. And it just flows right on through, and you have no memory for probably 99.9% of everything that's gone through your sensory systems. But it's looking for key signals. In those key signals, it has memories that are two kinds. It has chemical memories, and it has permanent biological memories that are through dendrite growth. And what this environment does is it tells the brain, hey, this stuff, you need to know this permanently. Grow the dendrites. So not only are the students getting a lot more practice, but each unit of practice is doing a lot more towards formation of skills, permanent memory. When Jalissa came back on the first day in the 6th year.
After summer, you have to say after summer. Summer slump.
Yeah, summer slump. She said to me, Mr. H, all the speed is still there, every bit of it. When Durrani sat down with Emmanuel and Jamarian, they went on day 1, they both put out 50 problems a minute for 20 straight minutes. That's almost an unhuman level of productivity. So they were all 3 of them racing with each other, and they put out a phenomenal level. This is day 1, so there was no loss. So what that told me is, the whole system is doing what it's supposed to do. These are permanent skills. These aren't temporary skills in chemical memory where they're just going to dissipate over the coming weeks and months.
And that also goes into the entire study where like, if you have your brain glucose consumption and you're both doing the same problem, you're both answering it, but there's a slight difference between the two.
Yeah. So this here, understanding this here is just critical for understanding what's going on in mathematics education. So they put students in scanners and have them do math problems and look up what's going on in the brain. And what they'll see is this student is doing 9 plus 8, and this student is doing a 2. This student right here, it's taken a massive number of neurons for them to accomplish this skill. This student over here, it only takes a few. This student here is headed towards success in fractions, ratios, decimals, and percentages because they're only using this much of their capacity for the basic operations. This student here, they will never be able to learn those more complex things. Even though on the surface it appears that they have the same skill level, it's not even in the same universe. This is what the potential of what this system unleashes, is that we, through the volume of practice, can have happen. We can get them to the volume of practice necessary to reduce that glucose consumption pattern from that massive engagement down to a pinpoint, freeing up the cognitive capacity necessary to do fractions, ratios, decimals, and percentages.
So you started a lot of science, but what's the real numbers? What sells adventurers, I guess?
So in Arizona, we have what we call the AZ merit test, and the typical, they have a scale that the science uses to measure academic results, and the typical gain on that scale from 3rd through 8th grade is 25 points a year. In this class, in our laboratory class, the typical student got 44, so 80% more than that average. It was enough for this school. We're on a letter grade system. They went from a D school to a B school in 1 year. So they got the full contribution through the letter grade system. But more important than that, they're on a path that will lead them to success if they can keep this level of gain moving on up. And we have 3 students who quadrupled the statewide averages. And it wasn't just on the AZ merit, it was also on a academic measurement system called Galileo, so we know it wasn't a statistical fluke. What that means is there's going to be a lot of teachers that get better results than this chart, than me. My classroom management skills are so-so. We see a lot of teachers that have much better classroom command than I was able to achieve in that classroom, and we think that this is only the tip of the iceberg, that there will be a lot of teachers that achieve a lot more with these scientific principles.
And not to mention that, you see down at the bottom of the graph, we have some students who didn't make the mark, but those are our SPED kids, and they showed academic gain. So, which is critically important to that. So, you had a question?
2 quick questions.
Yes.
How advanced does the math get in this program, and are you seeing the skills kids are developing here pay dividends as they're doing math that is beyond what this program?
Yes. Yes, and okay, so just to answer your first question, there are 750 standards. They currently are following closely to the Common Core standards. We use that as our base template, but we are finding
Grade level.
through all the way up through,
From preschool all the way up through.
so we're
we
talking
have
about
adults on it.
so square root and exponents. If
Yeah.
a kid can do square roots and exponents at speed, I don't want to get in their way. But the thing is,
They're all solid, at the top level, they would be solidly college and career ready.
so that's, and we're actually finding that the Common Core is not the best design in the world. So our data flow coming back, yeah, it's true. Our data flow coming back is part of our scientific principles. It's like, the next incremental growth, the next run should be right here, not right here. Some of them we see that it was right here, and then we're trying to get the kids to get up here, and we're finding failure, so we have to build in the gap, move some of the standards around, and then we find better success through that rejiggering of standards.
What we're finding here has enormous social ramifications for all of society. We, right now, in the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the ethnic achievement gap is 55 points at 4th grade, and that expands to 91 points at 12th grade. The students, the academic growth of our students, if you continue that on an arc, not only do you close the ethnic achievement gap, you reverse it. So the Duranis of the world will be outscoring white kids, and it will give them a chance for an equal shot in all of society.
What was I doing here? So basically, that's our science, that's our data. I mean, we have a lot more slides, a lot more stories that we can do, but really we want to reserve 15 minutes for questions and answers and anything else you want to learn more about it. This has been an exciting journey because we've been working on this project secretly for 4 years, and then January we opened it up to teachers to try it out, and we basically call it throwing it into the wild. So because we had our control group, we had our controlled environment, and then we had 5 teachers answer the call in January, and 25 did it in April through the end of the school year, and now we have about 140 across 20 states who are through word of mouth and other things. So it's just been a really exciting journey because when you see the kids and you feel their emotional change of an attitude with mathematics, going from I'm really stupid at math to, oh wow, I'm actually okay with math, to, oh, I'm great with math. I mean, that is life-changing. That is life-changing. And so many kids are just so withdrawn because they didn't think that they were able to subtract in their head, and they just kind of let that be as their life-long trajectory. So any questions? Oh, we answered everyone's questions?
So I was just noticing how quickly they were reading the math problems. Have you saw a correlation in their reading?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question.
You and I, we read at practically 400 words a minute. When we were working with these students, we realized that they could read, but they were reading 7, 8, 9, 10 words a minute. And reading was so painful to them that they just simply didn't do it.
And literacy is actually our next project.
And so what we're doing, and we talked about as the math, we're sending a lot more words to them. In other words, in order to solve the math problem, we have to solve the literacy problem, particularly with the literacy of math. So that's one thing we anticipate. We anticipate eventually that half of all the word problems, or half of all the math problems that we send to them will be completely in words. So instead of 6 plus 7 equals 13, we're going to have SIX, PLUS, SEVEN, EQUALS. And so it's all we're going to do a lot more in words. But yes, the answer is, even though we have a limited vocabulary so far, we thought that they would completely flummox them. Not at all. They're getting those words down. They can plow right through those. It has none of the word stuff. It's been sometimes occasionally at first we'll have to sound it out for them, but then they just get moving.
And this also speaks highly, and I forgot to bring it up, ELL students. We have a huge huge population of ELL students in Arizona. And we were working with ELL students from elementary school to high school, where some didn't even speak a lick of English. I'm having problems too. So they started out really petrified, but then we started getting them engaged. They're finding success. Like when we went to one middle school, this student tested 3 years below the standard. We came back a month later. He's the #1 on the board. He has 40% more points than the next person below him because he found something that he could really accelerate at. And he was completely yellow out, and now he's starting to get really good at it. So it's amazing to see that level of transformation from somebody who was completely receded to unlocking their potential. And actually, I remember your second question. I don't think I answered your second question, which was, yeah, it did cause a lot of great gains because in a lot of classes that we work with, they're just doing basic addition and subtraction, but then their multiplication just became so much more powerful because of the fact that they didn't have that foundational skills. Like his students that he was working with, in his entire school, they were the only ones who could do multiplication. But we never got them to the multiplication tables because they were still working on the basic addition, subtraction, four-digit balancing and things like that. We never taught them that, but that all applied to the skills that they needed to do.
But if you see, I would believe in my head that if kids are spending their brain power doing the math instead of the arithmetic, they can do more advanced math more clearly. But I want to know, have you seen evidence of that happening? Are they able to do algebra 2?
The gains in the school transferred over. They showed above average gains. They didn't show the gains that they showed in math, but the gains in English were profound.
Yeah, it did transcend, but mostly it's about attitude. You know, so changing their attitude, profound changes in that, and attitude and belief and confidence is over half the battle. Yes, sir. Oh, who you want? Who? Pick straws.
Okay,
Go ahead, you, like, ma'am. Yes.
So how long have you guys been doing this pilot, you said?
Okay, so the history is John started about 20 years doing research. 15 years ago, we had a first test, oh gosh, a long time ago, yeah, somewhere. What was that? Oh, that was in Mesa, right? Okay, so anyway, fast forward, one school for the past 4 years, and then we opened it up January of this year for friends who wanted to try it, and then, so basically, realistically this year.
So have you done mostly elementary then?
Oh no, since then we've actually gone middle, high, and GED programs.
It'd be interesting to see if there's a correlation, because for our district, our biggest thing is our algebra and failure rates.
Mm-hmm.
And to see if that has, and I would assume that it would have an impact on the failure rates. And if you follow those kids at all, have you followed them?
Yeah, we have about a dozen high school, alternative high school implementations that are running through it, and we're actually, since a lot of it started this school year, we're getting a lot of our data back from the second benchmark in December. So we're really eager to hear and see what's going to happen. So
to go directly to what you're talking about, for literally decades, the thing we were focused on was the team score aspect of this. The thing that we came to realize over the last 2 to 3 years, and particularly this last year, is that there were all these other riddles that had to be solved. And because I was spending time right in the classroom, as opposed to guiding this theoretically, just from my theoretical research, I was able to see it and go like, oh, this is more complicated than we thought. So the answer is, we haven't been able to follow these students longitudinally long enough yet, or to have a large enough body, but now we're going to we have a lot more classes, and we're going to be able to find exactly those things. But it strongly, our personal experiences strongly suggest that our basic theories are absolutely correct. That if a student doesn't have fluency at those basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, they can't even learn fractions. And if you can't learn fractions, there's no way you're going to be able to do algebra. It just simply, you can't get there. And so that's the high algebra failure rates are just the fact that there's not the fluency that's needed with basic operations.
Yeah. Oh, let's go to you and then you, sir. Okay.
Is there like an instructional piece to this, or is it just the computer software?
The instructional piece is the students, they learn through their fluency at this level, they can figure out this level, if this level isn't too far away. There's an absolute key piece for the teacher to move to that, we call it the shortest bar up there, which indicates the students are struggling a little bit, and they give instructions on the spot as students are indicating problems, but there's no explicit instructional piece in this. What we have is on-the-fly feedback, which is just basically green or red. that they have to absorb. What does that mean? And improve their outcomes.
Yeah, and actually this really goes down to like, game theory and how video games are designed. Rarely do you find in video games that they give you a tutorial on every single level. They might give you a tutorial in the beginning on how to get going, but then you are tasked to figure out yourself. And that's the whole entire challenge. And that's actually one of the game theory principles that we really strongly hold on, is that you're personally overcoming challenges. So you become personally invested and you feel accomplished because you personally did it. Someone didn't tell you the information, didn't tell you the hints, the cheats or things. You made it through on your own. And that level of accomplishment really holds strongly in the hearts of the kids. So I do know where you're coming from, but sir?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask you because you mentioned earlier what this does. And as a math teacher, I'm a former math teacher. It's very exciting to see students, because I agree with your premise that you're not going to be able to do the higher level thinking without the basic. It's like trying to read, I don't know, Chaucer. You can't get through Jack and Jill. That's just the way it is. You have to practice, and I love that whole idea. My question is you mentioned about believing that they can do the math, and that made me think of Joe Bowler's work in UCube. Have you looked at that at all?
UCube is a great website, so if anyone's ever been to it, they have wonderful resources and videos to really help inspire kids. So I haven't really studied his body of work, but I'm very familiar with it. Yeah. So it's a wonderful. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a quick question coming from the CTN. And as you know, I've been in Arizona for many years, but I've been in Texas now for 2 years. And because we have Texas TEKS that differ from what Arizona was, Common Core and so forth, and we have certifications where our CTE teachers, like a business CTE teacher, who really has a business degree, or an agriculture teacher who's got an ag degree, they're teaching ag math, they're teaching business math, they're teaching statistics because the state of Texas says they're qualified to do that. Now, when I'm looking at something, and this goes along almost with your question, what type of instructional materials are there? Because these are not math certified teachers in CTE that would then be doing this program or using this program, even if it's just for warm-up, or the activity at the start of the class. What happens then when that student exceeds what that teacher's knowledge is? Because those teachers are very knowledgeable in the content area in CTE, but they may not necessarily be so knowledgeable in the math area, even though the state says, yes, they are qualified. And actually in the district where I'm the CTE director, we've got teachers in those exact positions that are teaching math, and I'm, of course, in the district, well, maybe we should be having a math teacher teaching this, but the fact remains, anybody else that's in here from Texas, the fact remains, Texas permits non-math teachers to be teaching math courses.
When we get to these issues of standards in different states, as we've gone through this process, we sort of simplify the standards process down into some very key lines. And I don't know how this stuff moves into standard speak, but one of our discoveries was that a student has to be fluent at 0 through 2 before they can become fluent at 0 through 5. It's a whole separate thing. And it was astounding for us to observe this, that we had to create a fluency level right there at counting and fluency at 0 through 2 to get them fluent there before we moved them on to 0 through 5. And that was stunning. We had never seen anything like this in the standards or anything else really. So that's one divider line there that we had to have. So we had to create what we call the whole new level Z for this fluency at counting, at number identification, at 0 plus 0, 0 plus 1, 0 plus 2. And then we went on into the first standard of the national kind of standards of 0 through 5. The other dividing line was, and this standards don't address at all, is as you go from addition, subtraction, and multiplication to fractions, ratios, proportionals, and decimals, the student doesn't just have to know these things, They have to be fluent at them. And they've got the calculations down to milliseconds. So 75 and lower, you're headed on to success. 125 or higher, you're gonna run into problems. It takes you too much cognitive capacity to do your basic operations. Or do you read this in standards? The only way you can solve those problems is with lots of practice. And the only way to motivate students to get to those volumes of practice that we know of is in the environment that we were able to create, where we can get students to do thousands and thousands of problems and get that cognitive load down to where they can do this stuff very quickly and they're ready to move on to the higher levels. So I know what you're saying there. This is something a little...
The teacher prep.
Well,
are the teachers prepared?
So,
because you spoke about that if a teacher sees that a student is falling behind, then the teacher needs to do some type of sort of intervention. What I was mentioning is because of certification laws here, some of those teachers aren't.
They aren't ready.
They're not prepared to do
so here's the best way to think about it. Where the teacher needs to intervene usually happens in the very most basic elementary level. One thing we've seen is once a kid gets past a certain hurdle, since it's designed on incremental growth where we have the ability to be able to self-correct and self-learn through the video game theory, once they get through the initial stages, they're taking off on their own. And they might slow down a bit, but then they keep going. So in a lot of cases, the teachers on the higher level stuff do not need to intervene because the students already invested so much of their effort into this game. Like, I've been playing a game called Clash of Clans for 5 years. I can't stop. yeah, go TH12. And because I've already invested myself so much into it. I would fail a lot, but I didn't care because I invested myself into it. But then I'm growing and incrementally growing through the game through a very long process. But in the beginning, it was fast and furious, and I was getting into it. But then after that, I'm on my own. So basically, it really is teaching the kids to be self-sufficient, and then to really make it so that those RTI periods happen only in the first few months to get them over the initial hurdles of I'm not good at math to now, oh, I'm good at it. I can take on these challenges, and then we get into boss battles, and they can take down the avatars. But anyway, you had a question?
Well, I think it kind of springboards on what she was saying is the game teaching them the newer concepts, so you don't have to have a sit-down lesson that the teacher's doing. The game is they're learning like you would for a video game,
Exactly. It's a very unorthodox way to think about learning through non-lessons, learning through experiential methodology, learning through failure.
These kids are at all different levels in the classroom, right?
Exactly. Everyone's on a different level. They're playing different games, and they're all contributing points at their own ability level.
But they all feel strongly that they're part of the same team.
Right, there's not like a direct instruction. Like now we're going to learn about exponents because one kid is still working on some.
No, you still have to teach your standards at your grade level, whatever that is. But all this stuff is just kind of like building up as a tier 2. Or resource.
So in my laboratory class, we went from my work from 8 to 8:20, 8:25, right into the teacher's regular lesson.
So we have a bunch of questions. So you haven't had a question yet.
Okay. So what grade level do you recommend that you start with that?
Well, we've done it for third and second grade, but we've done limited tests in first and kindergarten. And our thoughts about the kindergarten is we have some kids who play this game. Once they get over the keyboarding aspect, they start taking off like a rocket ship because they had no preconceptions of what they're supposed to be able to do and what they're not supposed to be able to do. And we can't wait to see what kind of potential that unlocks. But really, so far, second and third grade and up all the way to GED.
The one challenge we have in third grade and below are the sign-on issues.
Yeah, but that's just something that we're going to mitigate over time. So
we're working on that, but you have to think about that as you volunteer if you're in the third and below. That you have to have drills on sign-on issues so that it can literally take you take students if you have a long user.
But we're not worried about John right now. So.
But you have to manage that aspect of it.
But besides that, the system itself can work wonders in the kindergarten and first grade level.
So my last question is, to see the results that you like the 40-day mark, the 80-day mark, how often and the duration of time are those students spending on that? Is that like every day, Monday through Friday? a whole class period?
No, so the original design of the program is 10 to 15 minutes a day, daily. In this particular case, those kids did it twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. But a lot of kids we find, about 30 to 40% of them go home and play it for half an hour. They go, we like it more than Fortnite. I'm like, what, really? I actually have a video that says that. I mean, I can't believe you said that. Like, I like Fortnite, but anyway. But yeah, so basically it's all about how many times you play it, the number of impressions that let you level up. Like any video game, a video game might take 80 hours, so you can take 2 days to beat that game, or you can take a week or a month to beat that game. So it's like that type of mentality.
Yesterday we started up a 4th grade class. It was the most wildly enthusiastic
over in San Antonio
4th grade class that we've ever started up. And when we saw the video up here where they said, no, we don't want to go home. Well, this class yesterday, or was it the day before? I'm losing track. But they were about twice the volume. And then about 40% of the students just spontaneously said, we want to do this for homework. And then about another 10% of them, we want to do it instead of homework. So they weren't even thinking of it as homework. They were thinking of it as something that was really enjoyable.
All right, so another question.
So what work, like I teach high school,
yeah.
What work has to go into building that culture? Because, sometimes especially we have some kids who are failing all their classes and who are like, I just don't want to do anything. And so if they're part of the team, how do you get them?
So one thing we've experienced with people like that, who we've actually met people who were oppositionally defiant at first, but then once you put the leaderboard up and start to encourage them on the very basic levels, there's something just clicks and something transforms in their head. I mean, it's like magic in a way. Okay, so so we went to a school and the teacher said, those 5, they won't do anything, and then all of a sudden they went, oh my gosh, I can't believe you got him to do this thing for 15 minutes straight. So we don't know what, but there's something about it that makes it work.
Because the system is picking them up and they can be successful, the best thing you can do is to go over there and say, show me what you can do. Mm-hmm. And so I model this behavior when we start up classes. I've had students growling at me and not faking it. But I just sat there, I refused to back off, and I said, okay, do a problem, and I'll even start answering them for them to get the whole process going.
Right.
And we've never had a failure. Those students will take off, they will become part of the group, and so the system works its magic. They start to realize, wow, I can actually control this. I can score greens, and I can, it's almost a miraculous kind of thing.
It is. So thank you so much for your time. You guys had wonderful questions, and this project is transformative. I mean, last year we had one school we're working with, and we were talking about the future. Well, here we are, the future is now, and then we're like, this is spectacular, and we can't wait till next year when we have a chance to talk about it again, and be like, hey, we went from 100 to 1,000 schools. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, because when we enter a school every time, it's so much energy, so much passion that happens in the class, and the transformation, the smiles, the giddiness of the kids, the special ed students who will go from, I don't know how to do this, to, oh my gosh, I can totally do this now. It's just amazing. So thank you so much for your time, everyone. Thank you. Yes. They're not working with Stanford. They're taking completely different roads than they are, but we are following along the same
There we go.
Support. We took these principles, was it more research points, but the mission to get and take a long time to make it into, oh wow, we started up. Oh yeah, they do want to do better, but they just had these roadblocks. They had these mental blocks. These like people telling them that they're special ed, but sometimes they're not special ed. Oh yeah, I know. Once we get this tackled down, we're gonna build a literacy, a reading, a writing, social studies, science, and yeah. Oh, absolutely. Once we got this nailed down, we can all the rest is just gonna start with the house. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So one thing that we do is like the scoreboard. Everyone's contributing to the team score. So say you hit half a million points, you get a pizza party. So kids go home and start playing the game because they want the pizza party faster. Thank you for that. Yeah. So that's once you get the intrinsic motivators in place, they want to be one more is not only. So, but doing that, building that. Well, you got my email address.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I sent it down, I sent a long email as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, either email me, I've already received 3 emails already. Yeah. Yeah, no, this is exciting. We started out with like a very simple premise and told people about it and exposed people about it. It really started to, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Well, right now, I think one of the strategies that you want to allow them to want, so we want you to provide the best teacher.
So where it is, once we get that down, all the teachers,
we want they're already. So we want the architects to make sure.
So, and the other thing is that Google and so help about you're doing it doctoring the operating for so the other thing is creating the structures necessary to ensure that they are doing it day after day and that you we didn't talk too much about user ideas. When you get down to lower range user ideas, you have to zero time to get no machine and figure it out.
And that's what we kids do. They're natural.
I know, me too, yeah. Fortnite a little bit, it's tragic on some.
That's the culture.
We haven't got some so much, but one thing we do though is get like Google Classroom. So they'll put the websites, they'll hit the website.
It's completely technology, but it is everything that has to do with students.
Thank you.
Well, the thing is, that's our major challenge, because we have so many people who are homeschoolers, and we have a limited. I know, that's what I said. So we, as a tutor, you could.
He didn't say that.
Well, that's our short.
And then the password that users be one, two, three. So they can memorize the word. So it's just idea. I don't understand if we can get around.
Yeah, when we can fund it, maybe.
Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait to get it. So what do you think about what we're doing now? It's a lot different than culinary?
Yeah. Well, if you're in danger of being operated, this is well, it's not. It's the same theory, but it's not. It's just a conversation.
Because
Is there the engagement leader?
yeah.
Well, we've got it. So let's make presentations. You got to schedule everything in. And you got to do this necessary. Keep the habits going. So I think we should look forward to it.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm with you.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
You said something last time.
They came up. Oh, right. Yeah, I can't believe it. Most of the time, so,
I know you've been traveling.
I've been to so many schools the past 4 months.